Trading card games are where it's at, and normally when a fandom reaches a certain point, an officially licensed physical trading card game is where the money is. Pokemon started out as a video game before getting a manga adaptation, and only then did it come up with a TCG together with the anime, among other things. While it could be argued that some franchises already had card representation like with PlayStation titles and recent Magic the Gathering Secret Lairs, the fact remains that games like God of War, Fortnite, and even The Last of Us don't really have their own TCG. Here's a list of 10 games and franchises that don't have their own physical TCG, excluding games that had one even if for a short while. Don't get me wrong, but no matter what people say about The Witcher 3, it's more than just a Gwent emulator. It's a great game in itself. Kidding aside, Gwent is a technicality since for one, it's a trading card game found inside another world. So game within a game. And second, it's digital, and what we're talking about are actual playing cards here in the real world. That aside, the world of The Witcher is filled with a great cast of characters headed by Geralt of Rivia. And the nice thing about there being a series is how it could even get an alternate artwork featuring Henry Cavill. With the world already filled with magic and mysticism, there's no shortage of material that could be used, and with an actual ending in sight, moments could be used as well. Similar to The Witcher, Elder Scrolls, regardless of its incarnation, has you, the player, as the hero rather than following the plot of a main character. The other main difference is how Elder Scrolls games have a sandbox approach to its storytelling, making it more about the items and environment rather than the events itself. It's the how more than the why, and when you try to imagine it as a card game, there'd be a vast difference with how it could turn out compared to The Witcher. In The Witcher, you control Geralt, but in Elder Scrolls, you'd control yourself. An argument could be made that most sandbox games would have the same approach, but considering the amount of content and backstory that could come from Elder Scrolls, there's no telling what'd come out. The Disgaea franchise by Nippon Ichi is one known for its absurd damage potential, interesting lore, and of course, memorable characters like Prince. With a history spanning over 2 decades, 7 mainline games and multiple spin-offs, it's surprising to say the least that this tactical RPG, heavily reminiscent of Final Fantasy Tactics, didn't have its own dedicated card game. Sure, it has an expansion in Way Schwartz, showing that it does have some semblance of traction, but that's like saying Secret Lairs and Magic the Gathering are actual sets, not just a cameo of the franchise they're featuring. With recurring characters in every iteration of the game and even similar elements like being based in the underworld, having an overlord, and disgustingly huge amounts of damage to name a few. There's no shortage on the source material available, but implementation's a different thing entirely. Everybody knows Zelda from The Legend of Zelda. He's that green guy who goes, "Ha!" Kidding aside, the Legend of Zelda franchise, for as long as it's been active, had never had a dedicated TCG. Sure, it had an Uno spin-off as a reskin, but there's tons of potential as well with Link and friends. It all lies in the Triforce and the Trinity with Link, Zelda, and Ganon, and having a multitude of incarnations help in that regard. There's time travel shenanigans, dungeon diving, and sometimes Ganon isn't even the main antagonist, making alignment pretty interesting. There's an established currency in rupees and even recurring weapons like the Master Sword, and imagining multiple Links facing off against a horde of enemies all at once doesn't seem like a pipe dream, since they did have a Warriors-like title in Hyrule Warriors. The Kukos though? They still spread fear wherever they go. On the topic of franchises that surprisingly don't have a TCG, Smash Bros. As a whole is another one. While Pokemon is the outlier here with everybody and even their moms knowing about it, the fact remains that this hodgepodge of IPs, both in and out of the Nintendo ecosystem, still baffles me. Alternate timelines, a variety of versions, and an extended roster featuring characters that should fit into a card game like Snake from Metal Gear, or even Pac-Man, lend to having a cast comparable to a decent TCG set. If Magic the Gathering and Sony Pictures could have the same character repeated like say with Spider-Man, then it should be easier for Smash Bros. To have something similar, and that even having a big bad at the end should at least lead credence to more lore over time. Sometimes a good story is all you need, but while mileage may vary as to what good is objectively to a story, The Yakuza or Like a Dragon franchise by Sega also surprisingly doesn't have a trading card game. Regardless of which incarnation of Yakuza you follow, whether it be the Kiryu-headed games from 0 to 6, Ichiban's games from Like a Dragon onward, or even Majima's spin-offs, one aspect that could be appreciated in each title is the presence of other Sega titles, and not taking itself too seriously. Yes, the crime drama is there, but these kids need helping and that old lady needs to cross the street. Would a Yakuza Like a Dragon TCG be a serious affair? We're not entirely sure, but whether or not its tone is serious would depend on how others would characterize the series as a whole. Speaking of a game that doesn't take itself too seriously, even with the Cataclysm right in front of it, a game that doesn't have a TCG but should have all this time was Heroes of the Storm. But before that, we need to talk about Hearthstone. Hearthstone, for those that didn't remember it from its heyday, is in the unique boat of actually being based on another TCG and not being made from scratch. And while the World of Warcraft TCG may not have had a lasting track record, the fact remains that Blizzard actually knows how to make a decent card game with a given IP. With that said, how they didn't bother bringing back the TCG to differentiate it from Dota or other MOBAs at the time eludes me. They already had the framework with WoW TCG and even Hearthstone for card design. They made a mini expansion for StarCraft even, but not being able to do it for the other Blizzard IPs in Heroes of the Storm was a waste. While games like Counter-Strike, Valorant, Fortnite, and Battlefield would dominate the FPS genre, another well-established franchise was never actually dethroned, and that game was Call of Duty. For more than 2 decades, gaming households would always know of Call of Duty, with it even spawning a mobile port and one of the funnest recurring modes ever in Call of Duty Zombies. Considering how long the franchise had been out and the prevalence of tabletop games being derived from FPS games, it's surprising to know that the Call of Duty franchise didn't have its own trading card game. Sure, it had its esports cards featuring the players, but between its own mini Fortnite with all its random collabs and skins and the fun of its zombie mode, there should have been some wiggle room somewhere during development for the trading card game. Oh, real-time strategy games. Times are different now, but they'll always be a part of almost every gamer's heart. And none have a hold of it better than Command & Conquer. A franchise that hasn't been heard of in a hot minute. Command & Conquer at its peak was the stuff of legends with it standing aside giants like Warcraft and Starcraft on the RTS scene. These days, while the franchise would eventually become obscure, it's surprising to say the least that it didn't have a trading card game made from it, or even just a collectible card set like baseball cards. Think about it. Between the Tesla coils, blimps, or just hearing Kirov reporting, things might have been different if they just had a trading card game. Or not. To round off our list is a game everybody knows, and at this point it might change since GTA 6 is finally coming out this year. Grand Theft Auto was ahead of its time, creating its own distinct set of rules complete with its own gameplay mechanics. Like driving less recklessly is something you see on the day-to-day, but to steal a car and actually force the police to summon tanks and helicopters? That's a GTA thing. Replicated but not duplicated, the Grand Theft Auto series would feature a variety of protagonists or even anti-heroes with their own humanizing traits. But the fun is in the vehicles and the world surrounding it. Like, did you know Bigfoot exists and even aliens too? In GTA, anything was possible, but sadly, they didn't create a card game even if it was on the mature side. Preparing this list was interesting, and realizing that some obscure games that you wouldn't think would have card games like The Sims actually did. You'd think that Kingdom Hearts wouldn't have a card game too, but between Chain of Memories being a card game to an extent and being based in Japan, you'd be wrong. With all that said and done, a card game isn't the end-all be-all for gaming, but it sure is something nice to have outside of the game itself. What about you? Is there a game you wish had a card game? Let us know in the comments below. For more content like this and other updates down the line, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.